हेलो, आवाज जा रही है जी?
यस सर।
ठीक। कितना स्टूडेंट है?
अभी 11 स्टूडेंट है सर।
शुरू करें?
यस सर।
In the last class, we discussed the characteristics of romantic poetry, and we also discussed that the first half part of 19th century is known as Romantic Age, and in Romantic Age there are 5 important poets: Wordsworth, Coleridge, Byron, Shelley, Keats. And I have told you that there are 2 phases in the Romantic Age. The first phase was formed by William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. They are called Elder Romantics. And Byron, Shelley, and Keats formed the second phase, and they are known as Younger Romantics. And we also discussed that all these poets are called romantic poets, but they have their specialization in their own way. Wordsworth has his specialization in nature. Therefore, he is called a nature poet. He has a spiritualized nature. He believes that God lives in the form of nature, and he tells that nature works as a friend, philosopher, and guide for me. Wordsworth has written a very beautiful poem that is the most important poem by William Wordsworth, that is the Daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering, dancing on the bridge. In the last stanza of this poem, the poet tells, for often on couch I lie, in a pensive or in a vacant mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. My heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. According to William Wordsworth, poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and recollected in tranquility, and the best example of this is found in these lines, or in the last stanza of the poem, The Daffodils. He has tried his best to make natural supernatural, or he wanted to make familiar unfamiliar. This is the characteristics of William Wordsworth, and he is called a nature poet. He is called a worshipper of nature because he believes that in the form of God, in the form of nature, God exists in this world, and we people have great respect for Parampita Parmeshwar. So we worship him. That's why William Wordsworth is called the worshipper of nature. So far as Coleridge is concerned, Coleridge is also called a, a romantic poet, but his poetry reflects so many characteristics of romanticism. But so far as his specialization is concerned, he had his specialization in supernaturalism. He is called a poet of supernaturalism. Supernatural events play very important role in शिशु देखो तुम मम्मी से बात करके फोन कर रही है क्लास ले रहा है मम्मी से बात करके बात हो गई इसमें कायल फोन कर रही है So he is called a poet of supernaturalism, and we find the picture of supernatural elements playing very important role in the poetry of S.T. Coleridge. The great difference between I have told you the difference between natural and supernatural. Natural, which can be seen by us, which is visible to us. Supernatural means beyond our vision, one which is beyond our vision, one which is invisible to us, one which cannot be seen through our eyes. So Wordsworth is called a poet of nature, whereas S.T. Coleridge is called a poet of supernaturalism. The basic difference between Wordsworth and Coleridge is that Coleridge makes supernaturalism natural, whereas Wordsworth makes natural supernatural. Wordsworth makes familiar unfamiliar, whereas S.T. Coleridge makes unfamiliar familiar. This is the basic difference between Wordsworth and Coleridge as a poet. Another thing is that Wordsworth Wordsworth, Coleridge, Byron. Byron is called a champion of liberty. He is the supporter of French Revolution, which is based on the principles of equality, liberty, and fraternity. Now comes to Shelley. Shelley is a revolutionary poet, and he wants to bring a kind of peculiar type of change in the society. He wants to change the society which is full of evil things. This society is full of evil things, so he wants to remove the evil things from the society, and he wants a golden world in which there should not be disparity between man and man. There should not be discrepancy between man and man. Shelley wants to see everyone equal in the society. Man should not have hatred for man. Man should not have hatred for man. Man should have love for man. So he wants to change the society through love, through sympathy, through respect. And last one is John Keats. Keats is last to be born and first to die. He is called the youngest romantics in the history of English literature, and he lived only for 25 years and 3 months on this earth, and within this short span of his life he has written so much so that he became an immortal poet in the history of English literature, and he is called the worshipper of beauty. He has pointed out in the last stanza of the beautiful poem Ode on a Grecian Urn, beauty is truth, truth beauty. I have told you that he believes that God lives in the form of beauty, but beauty beauty is of two kinds. One is mortal beauty, another is immortal beauty. Mortal beauty means one which can be destroyed, which is perishable, that is not permanent. For example, you must have seen so many heroes and heroines. When they were young, they looked very handsome, they looked very beautiful, they looked very much pretty. But as soon as they grow old, their beauty fades away and they do not look as handsome as they were. They do not look pretty as they were. They do not look beautiful as they were. So this type of beauty is not permanent, it is perishable, it is destructible. Kids doesn't talk of this beauty, he talks the beauty which is permanent, which is imperishable, which cannot be destroyed, and that beauty is seen in the form of art. Once Keats has gone to British Museum in London, and there he had seen an urn. An urn. On that very urn is a pot just like vessel. Urn is a pot just like a vessel. He finds or he sees some pictures carved on that very urn. He sees there are so many persons present there. There is a fair there. A fair is held there, and so many people of the village have gathered there. There is a lover and beloved. They are at some distance. They are not close to each other. There are trees carved on that very urn. The poet thinks that the lover will not touch the beloved, and beloved will not kiss her lover. The lover will not kiss his beloved. That's right. They will not meet with each other. Never. They will never meet with each other. But on the other hand, there is also certainty that they will never grow old. They will remain permanent as they are looking today. Because what is the reason that this will happen? Because they are in the form of art. They will never lose the sight of the sight of each other. The lover will not go away from his beloved. Beloved will not go away from her lover. so they will see each other permanently. Why it happens? Because they are in the form of art, and the beauty in the form of art is permanent. Whether it is the beauty of the nightingale when Eliot listens to the sweet when kids was passing through the hard times, his life was full of miseries, and he was sitting in a lawn in the house of his friend at Hampstead. Hampstead is a mohalla in London, and in that very place, Hampstead, a friend of John Keats, whose name was Tom Jones, uh, used to live. And one day, Keats went there, and there was a teak tree there, and a nightingale had built its nest on that very tree. The poet was, it was the spring season of 1819, and it was the spring season. He took out a chair, put it on the lawn, and he was sitting there. He was passing through the hard times because he had lost his father, he had lost his mother. All the members of Keats's family were suffering from tuberculosis. So one by one, all the members of his family left this world. So Keats's life was full of sufferings. Keats's life was miserable. Keats never tasted the fruit of happiness throughout of his life, and he experienced that. You must have heard the name of Sutranandan Pant, who has pointed out that यह सांझ हुसा का आंगन आलिंगन विरह मिलन का चीर हास्य अश्रु में आनंद रे इस मानव जीवन का. He has pointed out, वियोगी होगा पहला कवि, आह से उपजा होगा गान, उमड़ कर आंखों से चुपचाप वही होगी कविता अनजान. Sumitranandan Pant, a great romantic poet in Hindi literature, has pointed out that as morning comes, evening goes, evening comes, morning goes in the nature. Day comes, night goes, night comes, day goes. What I mean to say simply, or what he means to say, is this, that day is not permanent, but night is not permanent. There is a process of coming and going, coming and going. Day comes, night goes, night comes, day goes, evening comes, morning goes, morning comes, evening goes. So not evening is permanent. There is not the morning is permanent. So there is nothing which is permanent in life, whether it is pleasure or pain, sorrow and happiness. Sorrow comes, happiness goes, happiness comes, sorrow goes. So he has pointed out, Keats has expressed his experience that pleasure and pain are neighbors to each other, and nothing is permanent. And when at that very situation he was sitting there, passing through the hard times, passing through the miserable condition, suddenly he listens to the sweet song of the nightingale coming out through the mouth of the nightingale, and he starts writing, my heart aches, drowsy numbness pains my sense as though of hemlock I had drunk, or empty some dull opiate to the dreams, 1 minute past Lethe wards had sunk. It is not through in view of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thy happiness of beech and green, shadows numberless, singest of summer in full-throated each. So he was inspired just after hearing the sweet song coming out through the mouth of the nightingale sitting in a tree in the lawn of his friend uh, at Hampstead. So he has a spiritualized beauty. He believes that beauty in the form of art. He tells in this poem that the song of the nightingale was heard by the sad women in the ancient time, and it is heard by me in the present time, and it will be heard by the coming generations in the in the future. So it was, it is, and will be. So it is universal and it is permanent. So Eliot Keats talks of permanent beauty, and he has pointed out in the Ode of Grecian, or in the last stanza of the Ode of Grecian, beauty is truth, truth beauty, सुंदरता ही सत्य है और सत्य ही सुंदर है. So this is these are the five poets: Wordsworth, Coleridge, Byron, Shelley, Keats. These are the romantic poets in the history of English literature, and they all of them are called romantics, but they have their own specialization in different things. So far as the poet St. Coleridge is concerned, he has written Kubla Khan, he has written Christabel, and he has written the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Firstly, you should know the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a narrative poem. It is a narrative poem. The question comes into our mind, what do you mean by narrative poem? What is the meaning of narrative poem? Which poem is called narrative poem? Simply you should know, when a story is narrated in the form of poetry, in the form of verse, that poetry is called narrative poetry. That poem is called narrative poem. Simply you should know, a story in verse. Verse means poetry. When a story is told, a tale is told in the form of poetry, in the form of poem, in the form of verse, that is called narrative poem. All the epics, whether it is the Ramayana, whether it is Ramacharita-manas, whether it is Bible, all the epics are long narrative poems. All the epics are long narrative poems, and they were written in a grand style. Their theme is serious, but all the epics are called narrative poems. So firstly you should know that the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a, I have told you in the beginning that rhyme means what? Story, and of means ka, and the ancient mariner means old sailor. Means there is a man who is an old sailor called as, known as ancient mariner, and he narrates a story, what has happened with him while making his journey on the surface of the sea, and he is expressing his experiences to someone through his narration. So this is a narrative poem because the story is being narrated by an ancient mariner to a wedding guest. So it is a narrative poem. The second thing is that in this poem, or St. Coleridge has written this poem in the form of ballad, BALLAD. double L-A-D, ballad. Some people call it ballad and some people call it ballad. But I never pronounce it as ballad. I always pronounce it as a ballad. Ballad this is a poem in the form of ballad. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a poem which has been written in the form of a ballad. Now the question is, what is ballad? Ballad is a long poem or ballad is a long song. There are so many songs in Hindi which can be sung on the music, on the harmonium, on the vasuri, on the guitar, sitar. For example, you must have heard the name of Maithil Kokil Vidyapati. He has written so many poems which can be sung or which are sung on the musical instrument. For example, Jai Jai Bhairav Asur Bhayavani Pasupati Bhavani Maya. Or another poem is Aaju Nath Ek Brat Mahasubh Lagal Hai Dharo Siva Natvar Roop Damaru Ham Bajayab Hai. Or for example, Tulsi Dasej Ramcharit Manas. You on the radio, a program was just spread on Ramcharit Manas, and this program was found in the program वंदना एक प्रोग्राम होता था जो रेडियो पर दिया जाता था, उसमें मानस गान दिया जाता था. So what is this? These are called song. And likewise, this is a ballad. Ballad is a long poem or long song that tells a kind of a story, often about love and war. Try to understand. Ballad is a long poem or ballad is a long song that narrates a kind of a story which is about the love and war. So this is called ballad, and this poem also narrates the story regarding the ancient mariner. So it is a long poem, and I have told you that in 18th century the poetry was written in heroic couplet, and I have told you that 18th century poetry has a tight, neat structure. It is a stanza of 2 lines known as heroic couplet, and the poet has much more idea. They want to express their emotions, feelings, ideas, which cannot be accommodated in the stanza of 2 lines known as heroic couplet. So the poets, I have told you that Romantic age came in protest against the neoclassical age. So neoclassical poetry has a tight, neat structure. In protest against this type of a structure, the loose type of a structure came in the 19th century, known as Romantic poetry. So it is a poem in the form of ballad in which much more ideas can be accommodated easily. So this poem is called ballad, and ballad is a long poem, long song which tells us a kind of tale or a tale often about love and war. Love doesn't mean love like lover and beloved. Love means you should know, not pyar. Love here means prem. Prem has a deeper meaning. Love has or pyar has a shallow meaning. We cannot, we can love God. Love here means deeper meaning. We have love for Parampita Parameswar. So we shall discuss later on the love between Atma and Paramatma, love between God and human beings. That is called love. God lives in the form of love. Where there is love, there is God. Where there is love, there is God. So you should know that here the story is often about love and war. This is called ballad. Another thing which I would like to convey to you all is this, that Coleridge has invented a theory known as willing suspension of disbelief that is found in his poetry. He is famous for this theory, willing suspension of disbelief. Try to understand willing. Will means desire. Will means wish. Will means iksha. Willing suspension of disbelief. Disbelief means unfaithfulness, aviswas. And when you hear the story narrated by an old man, whether it is your grandfather, grandmother, or any man like your grandmother or grandfather, any man or woman who is narrating you the story. There was a king, or you may understand through another example that when you go through the Ramcharitmanas, you come to know that when Lakshman was lying on when Lakshman became senseless and he was lying on the earth, Lakshman was shot by Meghnath, and Meghnath was a brave son of 10-headed Ravana. And at that very time, when Lakshman fell on the ground, being senseless, at that very time, Sri Ram was in a fix. What to do or what not to do was problem before him. So he started weeping, and Tulsidas writes, Sut bitnari bhavan parivara, ho jahi jag barambara, as vichar jiya jagahu tata, kabahun mili hai sahodar vrata, jatha pankh binu phagpati dina, अनि बिनु फनिकर वर अतिहीना, जो जानत वन बंधु बिछोहु, पिता वचन मानत नहीं होहु. So he is expressing his emotions, feelings, love, sympathy for his younger brother who is lying senseless on the earth. At that very time, Hanuman comes and he asks to bring Vaid Susen. Susen was living in Lanka, and try to understand it is only Susen who can save the life of Lakshman. So you should know Hanuman went to Lanka and brought Vaid Susen from Lanka to India, and the place where Lakshman was lying senseless. And Vaid Susen कहती पुनियाग्रह, अब नहीं बची हो प्राण, जब लगी रैन तब वहीं लगी आशा, भो रही छूट ही प्राण. When the night is over, and the day will come, Lakshman will lose his life. Lakshman will certainly die. So Lord Rama asks Hanuman to bring Sanjeevan booty from Dhaulagiri Parvat. When Hanuman went there, as Susen has pointed out, that the earthen lamp will light the place where there is the Sanjeevan booty. But when he reaches, he finds everywhere, on all the booties, on all the roots of the trees, the earthen lamp lighting. So he was not in a position to recognize which plant is called the plant of Sanjeevan booty. So he brought the Dhaulagiri. He takes Dhaulagiri upon his soldier, and he brings Dhaulagiri to the place where Lord Rama is with his brother, younger brother Lakshman. So is it possible that Hanuman has put the Dhaulagiri Parvat upon his soldier and he has brought it to the place where Lord Rama was living with his brother, or where the place where Lakshman was lying senseless? It is beyond our faith. We cannot, it is beyond our belief. We cannot. At that very time, Hanuman used to put Dhaulagiri Parvat upon his soldier, and these days one Hanuman cannot put even a single piece of a stone upon his soldier. So it is unbelievable. We cannot believe. So when you listen to the story of Hanuman along with Ram, Lakshman in the battlefield which occurred between Ram and Ravan, we cannot enjoy this story. So if you want to enjoy this story, you will have to suspend the feeling of your disbelief. Otherwise, you cannot believe, you cannot enjoy the story. Similarly, similar is the case with Coleridge. Coleridge has given the theory of willing suspension of disbelief. You should know the willing of disbelief must be suspended. This is called willing suspension of disbelief. The willing of disbelief must be suspended. This is called willing suspension of disbelief, or your disbelief must be suspended willingly. Willingly. That is called willing suspension of disbelief. Disbelief must be willingly suspended. You know that what I am hearing from through the mouth of my grandmother or grandfather is 100% not correct. It is incorrect, but you are listening to the story, not the real things. And this is called fiction. This is called fiction. This is called myth. Myth means imaginary thing. Myth means imaginary thing. When an old man narrates a story to you, he tells that आंख मुना तो 7 समुद्र पार चला गया. 7 समुद्र, 7 seas पार आप कैसे चले जाएंगे? Is it possible? But in a story, in Kampala, in imagination, everything is possible. So this is called willing suspension of disbelief. Try to understand. Again, I am repeating, when the will of disbelief is suspended, that is called willing suspension of disbelief, or when disbelief is willingly suspended, that is called willing suspension of disbelief. So these are the theories of St. Coleridge, which has been invented by him. Now you should know one thing which I have already told you, that visible is made invisible by William Wordsworth, and invisible is made visible by St. Coleridge. This is the characteristics of St. Coleridge. St. Coleridge is a poet of supernaturalism. He is called a great poet, and in this poem I have told you that it is a story of crime and punishment. It is a story of, it is a tale of crime and punishment. The crime has been committed by someone, and he is punished for that very crime. So this is called a story of crime and punishment, found in the form of ballad. Eliot St. Coleridge is also called a poet's poet. He is called a nature poet. He is called a poet of supernaturalism. He is called a ballad poet. He is called a romantic poet. He is called a poet of supernaturalism, and his poetry reflects everything which is found in romantic poetry. You know, uh, in his poetry we find seascape as we find landscape in the poetry of William Wordsworth. We find the picture of you may say sea, sun, moon, mist, uh, mist, iceberg, or you may say fog, wind. All these things are the parts of nature. They are not man-made. They are God-made. So, according to the proof of all these things, we may call that Coleridge is a nature poet. Nature plays very important role in the poetry of St. Coleridge. Or you may be asked, how do you say that St. Coleridge's poem is a romantic poem, or Coleridge's poem is a nature poem? Because we find the picture of some of the natural things, maybe sun, maybe moon, maybe ice, maybe snow, maybe mist, maybe fog, maybe sea. So maybe the nights, days, all the things. So these make clear that St. Coleridge's poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, is a nature poem, or it is a romantic poem, because all the romantic elements are found in the poem of St. Coleridge. And you should also know in a clear-cut way that some crime has been committed, some natural law has been violated by the ancient mariner, and you should know that if you disturb the nature will disturb you. Always remember, we should not forget these things. If you disturb nature, nature will disturb you. It is sure and certain, and it is a natural law. If you go against nature, nature will go against you. We are cutting the we are cutting the trees, the plants. What is the result? There is no rain. No rain is falling. And if there is no rain falling on the earth, what will happen? Drought will come. The land will become barren. We cannot grow plants. We cannot grow paddy. We cannot grow wheats. We cannot grow grams. What will be the result? The result is this, that we shall suffer from hunger, we shall suffer from starvation. So if you go against nature, nature will go against you. If you violate the natural law, the nature will also go against you, and they will also violate your law. And therefore the poet suggests us that you should know always everything, whether they are great and small, all the beasts, all the birds, all the animals, all the men, all the women, all the child, all the children, whether they are male and female, all these creatures have been created by God, and they are living in this world, in this earth. So we all, now I am not talking of men, women, male child, female child, or animals, beasts, birds, all the creatures, whether they are great and small. I am talking of an ant, or I am talking of an elephant. Biggest creature and the smallest creature, all have been created by Parampita Parmeshwar, all have been made by God. So the poet S.T. College suggests us that we people must have sympathy for each other. We people must have compassion for each other. We people must have love for each other. We people must have respect for each other. And the poet gives us a moral lesson through this story. We have not discussed the story today. In the next class, we shall discuss the story of the ancient mariner in details. But I suggest to you, I am throwing light on the theme of the story of the rhyme of, on the theme of the poem, the rhyme of the ancient mariner. So he suggests us, he gives us a moral lesson through this poem, that the best way of praying to God is to love all the creatures, whether they are great or small. Or the best way of offering prayer to Parampita Parmeshwar is to have sympathy for all the creatures, is to have compassion for all the creatures living in this world, whether they are great or small. Another theme of this poem is life in death. There are two terms invented by S.T. Coleridge: life in death and death in life. everyone has to pass through the two terms, life in death and death in life. Death in life means complete death. There is no question of coming back. Means you die. That is death in life. Life is dead. But just opposite to this, there is another term, life in death. Means you are alive. You are not dead. You are living your life in this world. But you are alive just to say, better it would be for you if you die. Then you will get rid of your life in death. Means कहने के लिए तुम जीवित हो, लेकिन सिर्फ कहने के लिए जीवित हो. For example, there is a man who is completely paralyzed. He cannot move from one place to another place. He cannot take his food with his own hands. He cannot go to bathroom without the help of his attendant. So what is this? Just to tell you are alive, but this type of condition is called life in death. Means you are suffering. For what? For what you have done, mistake in your life. I have told you, करे बुराई सुख चाहे कैसे पावे कोई, रोपे बिजवा नीम के आम कहाते हो. In this world there is heaven and there is hell. जिस दुनिया में जिस इंसान के पास 5 तत्व है उसके लिए स्वर्ग है. इन माई ओपिनियन, पहला शरीर स्वस्थ हो, दूसरी चीज पत्नी पतिव्रता हो, बेटा आज्ञाकारी हो, खाने पीने भर संपत्ति हो और कर्जा से मुक्त हो. ये 5 तत्व यदि if you have these 5 elements with you, it means you are leading a heavenly life. You are leading your life living in the heaven. But if one thing becomes minus, you are not living your life as a life in heaven. And you should know, pay your attention to anyone who has all these 5 elements. सब कुछ है तो बाले बच्चा नहीं है. बेटा है तो इतना बढ़िया है कि कभी रेप केस में तो कभी रोड होल्डिंग में तो कभी शराब वाला में तो कभी इधर उधर पकड़ा जाता है. तो अब सब कुछ है तो संपत्ति ही नहीं है. दिन भर कमाते कमाते मर रहे तो पर भी खाने की 2 जून की रोटी नहीं मिल रही. So the poet tells that this is called death, life in death. कहने के लिए just to say you are alive in this world, but you are suffering from paralysis, you are suffering from other disease, and due to which you cannot move from one place to another place. You always need some attendant who may provide you food, water, and with whose help you can go from one place to another place. If a man is found in such type of conditions, in such type of situation, that is called death in life. Death in life. So the theme of this poem, the rhyme of the ancient mariner, is crime and punishment. That's right. But it is also, death in life is also the central idea of this poem, the rhyme of the ancient mariner. And in the next class, we shall throw light on the story of the poem, the rhyme of the ancient mariner, how actually what has happened in the life of the ancient mariner during his journey in the sea has been expressed, has been narrated by him in this poem, and that's why Coleridge has written the poem The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, means the story is narrated by the ancient mariner, and through this story he is expressing his experiences, the experiences of his life. How did he feel while making his journey in the sea? यही रहने देते हैं. हेलो.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, रहने दो. थैंक्स.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.